Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Show times again, no changes. Everything seems to be in a stationary status quo now. So 5:30 for APB and KUAC at 9.4, and 360 North always been at 7:30 and 5 a.m. the following morning for Alaska Public Media. And each show gets posted to YouTube at least by 8 p.m. And on the satellite imagery yesterday, we had a front extending from about Wrangell Island here right through the interior. It made a push to the north Saturday night and then started coming back southward due to some northeasterly flow coming around a big high up over the Arctic. So cleared out really nicely up here yesterday, and more moisture approaching the panhandle here as that front pushed in, the main low down to the south. And a pretty good low there near Kodiak Island, made for a windy, wet day yesterday. And today, the different story there, cleared out, sunshine this afternoon across Kodiak, and mostly sunny skies back up across Bristol Bay. Back all the way up to the Yukon Delta coast there. Still some scattered showers in this area, as well as in through here. Some scattered showers going on today with the clouds, and then not quite as much clearing up here to the northeast, but still pretty nice, just some variable clouds. And the system down here pushing a couple of bands of moisture and some rainfall in across the southeast coast today, but nothing really too heavy down there. And out to the west, a stronger system coming into the southwest Bering Sea. Batch of moisture here slipping up, just really providing some fog around the Pribilofs today. The stronger center back out towards Shimia. And gale force winds out of the south, maybe gust 45 miles an hour coming across the central Aleutians during the day today. Otherwise, northern Bering Sea in the sunshine there at St. Lawrence Island today, with clouds to the north and of course clouds to the south, and rain west of the Pribilofs here, extending southward there into the west central Aleutians. A few showers around Shimia this afternoon, and again pretty windy conditions, but nothing all that strong with that system. Nothing more than 30-35 knots for the Marines out there, and even much lighter winds today across eastern Aleutians. As I mentioned, high pressure right over Bristol Bay, making partly to mostly sunny skies for the Alaska Peninsula northward here, and northwest flow really cleared those clouds out across Kodiak, and variable clouds here over south central Alaska. Mostly scattered and light shower activity along the Alaska Range and back to the northwest, but amounts during the day today in the 12-hour period ending at 4 p.m. running about just a few hundredths of an inch, the exception being up here over the southern or southeast Seward Peninsula, Elam and Golub and White Mountain. In those areas picked up about 4/10 of an inch of rain, or actually Golub had 4/10 of an inch, maybe 2/10 there at White Mountain, but a little more concentrated showers in that location. And then high pressure over the interior, very light wind conditions, upper Yukon, Koyukuk Valley areas, Brooks Range, North Slope. On out to the Arctic coast, light variable winds. That allowed for some fog to hang in around the Barrow area. They were socked in this afternoon. Quarter-mile dense fog, about a half-mile occurring over at Wainwright there, and maybe a mile or so at Atasuk, and then better conditions VFR at Point Lay, and then again clearing out down to the south through the Bering Strait. Forecast for tonight, system moves into the western Bering Sea. The front moves to about this position around 3 or 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. So that'll definitely spread some rain and wind into the Pribilof Islands. That'll approach St. Lawrence Island, and the warm front will spread some moisture into the eastern Aleutians. And wind's not all that bad here out over the central Aleutians there, and even lighter back to the west. High pressure holds here over the western interior, the centers, and that kind of keeps these showers trapped in the clouds there. Still some just scattered, isolated light showers, mostly cloudy skies. Variably cloudy conditions continue here across south central Alaska with light winds. Could be mostly clear over the eastern interior, and that'll allow the temperatures to drop a little colder there. And then look for some snow flurries possible there north of the Brooks Range on the north slope, associated with this very weak trough up there to the north. And then that low pressure area starts to pull off to the southeast, so moisture bands kind of die out up into Canada there. Still a risk of some scattered showers tonight, especially this evening. That all on the diminishing mode later tonight and toward tomorrow morning. Could be some clearing showing up there. And taking a look at Tuesday, all the showers now gone into Canada or off to the southeast, left with just some partly to mostly cloudy skies, maybe some sun breaks there. About the same pattern right up to the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. Should be another mostly sunny day there at Kodiak. Bristol Bay, a day much like today, even the southwest interior. A lot less showers, but still a risk of a few isolated light showers here over the west central interior from the Nulato Hills eastward there, but nothing significant. Mostly sunny upper Yukon Valley, the high pressure over the northwest, Kelly, Noatak, Red Dog, all those areas, Kivalina, on down into Kotzebue. Look really good tomorrow with light winds and just partly cloudy skies. Still looking at snow showers possible, very light flurries up over the north slope, maybe right down to the Brooks Range, but staying north, I think, of Anaktuvik, for example, on back up to the Arctic coast, but all that's really light. Otherwise, out to the west is where all the storminess is, and that first front weakens and comes northward, the low kind of rotating back to the west a little bit there. So rain and wind continue here for the Pribilof Islands. Just a weak trailing edge coming down into the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula there for a lot less effect. And then a big increase in the winds late tomorrow afternoon as that next pretty big storm comes in. Very strong winds down ahead of that front, down to the south with 970 millibar low. So we'll see for Wednesday, that just comes up toward Amchitka there. Big push to the north here of the front, edging eastward at a slower rate. So we've got some full gales to possibly minimum storm force winds ahead of this front here coming across the central Aleutians early in the day or late tomorrow night, and early on Wednesday approaching the eastern Aleutians there with rain on the increase in these areas up across the Pribilof. Very windy conditions, good gale warnings out, full gales 40 to 45 knots in the forecast. Again, could be a narrow area of 50-knot winds ahead of excuse me, ahead of that front. And that warm front spread some chances of rain up towards St. Lawrence Island. Western interior here along the west coast, look for a general increase in the clouds. Still not too bad though, dry conditions definitely all the way up to the north. And then looks like less cloudiness in the interior all the way down to south central Alaska. So look for a mostly sunny day here from Kodiak Island, Prince William Sound northward up to about the Brooks Range. And then you get into a few more clouds up there on the north slope, and then that very weak trough could keep some flurries going over toward Kaktovik, Barter Island, and areas east of Dead Horse. Otherwise, maybe a few clouds in the Copper River Basin, but again, it looks pretty good. Then we've got upper disturbance sliding southeastward here off the coast. So these showers will stay west of the Panhandle, while the showers over in Canada, they'll stay to the east or near the border. So you'll be left in the partly cloudy, partly sunny, mostly cloudy conditions there with light winds. A dry day anyway for the most part. The system here still well down to the south. Temperatures across the Panhandle today were upper 40s to upper 50s, exception being Annette. Hit 60 today, 55 Sitka. State capital had 51 with a 55 at Yakutat, and basically mid-50s here across the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound, Valdez at 55. 56 Seward, and that same temperature recorded at Homer. 52 in Kenai. Upper 40s from Willow on up into the valley there toward Talkeetna. 40s Cop River Basin, and lower 40s in the Tanana Valley with Northway at 43. Fairbanks right at 40 degrees, and up to the north cooling off a little bit. Upper 30s here, Bettles and Fort Yukon. 27 higher elevation there at Anatuvik, and then the North Slope, lower 40s, Umiat Airfield, and right near the freeze point there from Dead Horse over to Barrow, and then warming back into the 40s from Point Lay on down to the northwest coast with a 53-degree reading at Deering. Otherwise, the Seward Peninsula in the mid to upper 40s, same temperature pattern here toward Caltag, on down to St. Mary's, 49 degrees, 48 there at Bethel, although they believe they had a high that topped out over 50 today, 47 at McGrath. And then a little farther to the south, we did have some upper 50s here over northeast Bristol Bay, as well as Kodiak Island with the sunshine through this area. 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, and lower 50s Fox Islands, 52 at Adak, and 47 out at Shimia. Lows out there for tonight in the 40s, northward to St. Lawrence Island. Along the Arctic coast, lows upper 20s to mid 30s, coolest on the east side. In fact, the whole eastern interior here will be more clear skies. Temperatures down 10 to 20 to maybe into the mid 20s through this area. Milder conditions back to the west, 30s to maybe near 40. Mid 40s Kodiak Island, upper 30s, lower 40s along the southeast coast. And then back into the 50s, lower to mid here for the Panhandle, and highs 30s and 40s up the east side to the Arctic coast, and upper 40s to near 50 here over the southwest interior, mid 40s over the Seward Peninsula, lower 50s for the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Flying weather starting out tomorrow, could be some IFR on the north and west side of the Alaska range here. Otherwise, good VFR over most of the interior, and then that moisture I spoke of north of the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. They've got some IFR drawn in there. St. Lawrence Island stays VFR tonight. A little bit of marginal stuff lingering down over the southern southeast coast, and then marginal VFR for the Alaska Peninsula, Pribilofs, and improving out toward the western Aleutians. For tomorrow afternoon, that trend reverses. A system comes in. IFR spreads back in out west there. Otherwise, areas of marginal VFR here across the Bering Sea, Aleutians of the Alaska Peninsula, coming up right along the coastline. VFR, Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait, and then more extensive IFR. They've got forecasts up there for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, but good VFR conditions here south of the Brooks Range, right into the Gulf of Alaska and across the southeast coast. So the passes, all VFR, Anatuvik, Adigan, Lake Clark and Merrill, and rainy. Ceilings visibilities possibly unlimited for windy. Same thing for Isabel and Mentasta. Looking really good. Tanita, Portage, wide open. Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels 2,000 feet. Eastern Arctic coast here right down to almost the North Gulf Coast. Eastward across the northern Panhandle. And then it's about 4,000 feet or so warmer down toward Dixon Entrance. About 4,000 feet here out over the Bering Sea. And the icing possibilities with that first system coming in, look for occasional rime icing here. Light isolated, moderate rime icing, Pribilof Islands back to the northwest there. The whole system, though, tending to weaken as it comes in, and then big surge of moisture pushing into the far western Aleutians. So a little bit more widespread on the moderate icing possible. That's going to be mostly west of Kiska Island, but no icing everywhere else. Eastern Aleutians, interior, none expected. Upper level wind flow chart, big upper high now, kind of slipped back down, or will slip back down to about this position midday tomorrow, keeping it pretty nice, ridging actually all the way down to the southern areas. And a system out here to the west, you got that 100-knot jet as the next one rolls in tomorrow night and the next day. Weak upper low off the southeast coast. And 9,000 feet, again, high pressure from the Arctic southward into the Gulf of Alaska or Northeast Pacific. And very light variable wind conditions for the Panhandle, all of the interior, all the way out to the Arctic coast, maybe up to 20 knots there. And because of that trough farther to the north, along the eastern Arctic coast. And then the winds pick up pretty good here over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. 25 to 40 knots from south to north here, coming up to St. Lawrence Island, dropping off a little bit back to the west, and then a big increase in the winds with that next system that'll be rolling in late tomorrow night. And on Wednesday, for the 3,000-foot winds, about the same pattern. Southerlies 30 to 40 knots here over the eastern central Bering Sea areas. 40 to 50 knots coming in late tomorrow afternoon toward the western Aleutians. Otherwise, along the coast here, light 5 to 10 knots, become just about non-existent wind-wise here over the interior. Very light from southern Alaska right up to the Arctic coast, and also down across the Panhandle. Maybe get some 20 knotters there near Kodiak Island. So turbulence-wise, it didn't draw a lot in. In fact, they didn't draw any in over the interior or the Panhandle, just out here where the winds are. Eastern Aleutians, occasional moderate chop. Same pattern there for the western areas, and also up here to the north, St. Matthew Island, right up to close to St. Lawrence Island, all below about 5,000 feet. And after the break of hangar flying, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, thank you to Alaska Public Media for sponsoring hangar flying. Tonight, we have Mike Hodges back to talk about control of foreign object debris. Mike is an aviation accident investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board here in Anchorage. Mike, welcome back.
Thank you.
Your safety alert was published just a couple months ago. Can you start with the basics and tell us exactly what foreign object debris is?
Sure. Foreign object debris, or FOD, is basically anything that's alien to an airplane or a helicopter that shouldn't be on there. And some real-world examples include, a screwdriver, a wrench, jewelry, coins, a cell phone, things of that nature.
Is there any way in particular that these foreign objects find their way into parts where they don't belong?
Yeah, that's pretty much human error, where folks take these things on board the airplane or helicopter with them. They don't account for them, and they leave them behind, and it ends up getting ingested into an engine, or it migrates to a flight control system and causes a jam. And so it's humans forgetting these items left behind, basically.
Okay. Can you give us an example of how serious a problem it can be?
Sure. I was on a airframe and engine exam last year out in eastern Washington for a UH-1 helicopter, and with that accident there, the pilot accidentally left a towel that was used for maintenance, actually for fog control itself, inside the engine. And during the pilot started the helicopter up and took off, and long story short, ended up having to auto-rotate and cause substantial damage. And that right there is an example of utilizing a towel for maintenance control. When you're forgetting about it, it gets left behind and causes an accident.
So it's not just a problem with mechanics, it's also pilots.
Correct. Pilots are just as guilty, where they can leave things behind on that airplane or helicopter, and that could cause a jam or get ingested into an engine. So it's pretty much, it could be pilots, mechanics, refuelers, anybody that's in and around that aircraft, if you will.
Okay. Is there anything that mechanics specifically can do to control foreign object debris?
Sure, there's a few things they can do. The first thing is basically doing an inventory of your tools your tools and items before you go on that aircraft. And then, of course, when you're done with your work at the end of the day, doing a second inventory of your tools and items. While you're working on that aircraft, doing the clean as you go technique, and not leaving behind a mess, and taking only what you need on board that aircraft, if you will. Leaving behind jewelry and cell phones and coins, keys, just taking what you need just to get the job done. Those are just a few examples of ways to combat FOD.
Okay. I imagine something like a checklist for tools that are used, or even cutouts or outlines on a pegboard for tools, so that you can see obviously when something's missing.
Yeah, definitely. Those are a few examples of shadow boxing your tools, so you can see what's out and what's in. Having inventory sheets, and of course too having a second mechanic come by and check your workspace, check your toolbox to make sure that you didn't miss anything. And of course, things like fatigue and distractions also play a role with FOD being present.
And those are really hard to limit.
Definitely, definitely.
So is there anything that pilots specifically can do to prevent their aircraft from being affected by FOD, or that they can do on an inspection type basis?
Sure, especially after that airplane or helicopter comes out of maintenance, is doing a very in-depth and detailed pre-flight and post-flight procedure. You know, we're all humans, we all forget things and get distracted, and sometimes mechanics leave stuff behind by accident, and as pilots we can go through and do very detailed pre-flight inspections and being very vigilant when we're doing those.
Okay. Now, in your safety alerts, these are in a format that is fairly standardized, but they have some great information about defining the problem and giving some examples, as well as providing recommendations. Where can people go to find more information about FOD or other safety alerts?
Sure. If you go to the NTSB's website at www.ntsb.gov, and we have a large section on there with various safety alerts, various titles for mechanics and pilots, and we've also got various safety studies on there and safety alert videos, and you can go through and search our accident database for previous accidents. So that we have lots of resources on there for the aviation community to utilize. Okay.
And I understand you've had a fair amount of professional experience with FOD, so you were well placed to publish a safety alert.
Correct, yeah. Before coming to the board, I worked for Sikorsky Helicopters in coastal Pennsylvania, and I was in charge of the FOD program there, and did that for a little over a year, and I was very familiar with FOD control techniques and processes and working with the different entities there, and so I think that really gave me a good foundation for my FOD knowledge here with the investigation side of the house.
And it definitely shows in this safety alert. Thank you so much for your work and for being proactive in helping pilots and mechanics keep aviation safe. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on our show. It's very nice to see that we've got dedicated aviation professionals working in aviation safety. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our program, and we appreciate you tuning in to Hangar Flying. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis looks like this, way off the coast here. I still have this little bit of ice in that area, but that's a fair distance off to the northwest. And then there's some slush lingering here off the coast there from about Barrow eastward, and really not expected to change a lot here over the next several days. And for the marine forecasts, inside waters, Lynn Canal, northern Lynn Canal, north 25, 5-foot seas tomorrow. Things diminishing as you head south down to 10 knots for Clarence Strait, northwest 15 out along the coast with 6 to 8 foot seas. And then even lighter winds in store for Wednesday, pretty light out of generally a northerly component up here, but only 10 knots, northwest 15, central and south coast, northwest 10 for Clarence Strait. No change for Stevens Passage, and under small craft advisories now for Lynn Canal. Bristol Bay, Prince William Sound, and northern Cook Inlet, or all of Cook Inlet, north at 10 or variable to north, 10 knots, seas 2 feet or less. Light variable winds another day tomorrow for the North Gulf Coast with 5-foot seas, and 20 knotters out of the northwest from Kamishak Bay, Augustine Island, down across the Barrens, westerlies 15 to 20 blowing across Kodiak Island. And then for Wednesday, really light wind conditions again, not only from the North Gulf Coast, light and variable with 3 to 5 foot seas, but now down across Kodiak Island, up into Kamishak Bay, and just through those northeast arrows in there. Otherwise, the entire map here would all be variable at 10 or less with slight seas. And for Bristol Bay, light winds tomorrow, south at 10, maybe 20 knots here out of the south on the north side of the Alaska Peninsula on the Pacific side, just 15 knots, more westerly there, southwest of Sitkinak. For the Wednesday outlook, coming up to 25 knots here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, just 15 on the south side, southeast 15 for Bristol Bay, starting out easterly in the morning at about 10 and then becoming 15 in the afternoon. Aleutian, small craft advisories there for the Fox Islands, out to Adak and Atka, pick up a little bit there west of Adak and become gales as that next storm comes up from the south late tomorrow afternoon. And then as that moves in tomorrow night and Wednesday, we've got good gales, full gales here, almost storms coming into the central Aleutians, spreading eastward to about Nikolsky, and then we bring it into about 35 to 40 knots there for the Fox Islands with 12 to 13 foot seas, swinging around to the northwest on the backside of the low towards Shimia. Southeasterlies 20 to 25 knots here along the southwest coast of St. Lawrence Island. South 30 knots for the Pribilofs, turn southeast there, again ahead of that front, pushing up the first one during the day tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, even stronger winds in store, 40 knots out of the southeast. Pribilofs right up across St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories for the coast up to St. Lawrence Island at 30 knots with 7 to 11 foot seas. Arctic coast, pretty light winds, west-northwest, 10 to 15, central and east coast, as well as the west side. No wind, 5 knots, variable, maybe east-southeast if there is a direction to that, with 2 foot seas. Then pick it up to 15 here from Wales to Cape Thompson, or Cape Beaufort there, and then east 10 northwest of there. No change here on the central and east coast, still kind of a west-northwest wind direction. On the light side, 10 to 15 or even 5 to 15 knots with slight seas. And for tonight, showers tapering off here over the southern panhandle, maybe some clearing, light winds, North Gulf Coast, variable clouds. Same forecast for Copper River Basin, south central Alaska. Lingering showers, Alaska Range back to the northwest of the Seward Peninsula, but nothing heavy. High pressure along the west coast. Flurries up on the north slope, and that's about it. And then the next storm pushing rain to the eastern Aleutians. Rain and wind for the Pribilofs with fog, turning into showers behind the front around Adak. And then tomorrow that whole thing lifts northward, the low center kind of getting pulled back in advance of that next big storm off to the southwest there. Again, bringing good wind and a really good shot of rain up with it here into the western Aleutians, spreading eastward. Otherwise, pretty fair conditions, high pressure, variable clouds over the interior. And then for Wednesday, a little more sun here, or could be a lot more sun over the interior, windy and wet out west.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Support comes from the University of Alaska College Savings Plan, helping you and your child save for college every step of the way, from diapers to diploma. More information at uacollegesavings.com.